Welcome back to another episode of Pursuing You podcast, guys. I am your host, Isabel Arias, and today with me, I have two very special gals. I have Maia Mae Huff and Blakely Huff. Guys, it is an honor to have you guys, and we're in studio. This is so fun.
I know, this is awesome. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited. Such a treat.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited, and that you guys just get to be in the city. This is so great. And like we had talked about this, I remember a year ago.
Yes.
Yeah, in the summer, and we were like planning it, and then other things, life happened.
Life got in the way.
And
now we are getting ahead of life. We're here, ready. We won.
No, literally. And I'm so happy that you guys are here. I just want you guys to start with like who you guys are, what you guys do, and we can like go from there.
Awesome. Yeah. Go ahead, girl. I was going to say, you go ahead. So like you said, I'm Blakely Huff. I am from a town called Niceville, Florida, in the Panhandle. I went to school at Pepperdine University in Malibu, California. I got my degree in integrated marketing communications. I graduated last April. And in the past year, life has just been crazy. Maya and I have fortunately enough, gotten to be a part of a ministry called Overflow Living, and we've created a few studies and courses and Devo type things, and hosted some gatherings, and we're also doing some social media management stuff. So we're just having a ball and seeing where life takes us. But yeah, so that's a little bit of what I'm currently up to, just with postgrad and all that.
That's so sweet.
That is awesome. Yes, I am Maia Huff. I am Blakely's cousin.
Oh, yeah, I didn't say that.
We are cousins. And I'm from around the same area that Blakely is, and we've known each other all throughout growing up, and now we're family, which is such a sweet, fun thing. I married her cousin, and now
Praise the Lord.
Praise the Lord. So thankful. God knew what he was doing on that one. And it's just been so sweet. So I am currently living in, drumroll, Delaware. And Delaware is, we're there basically. My husband plays professional baseball, so we move all around. So we were just in West Palm for 6 months, and now we're in Delaware, and then wherever else they want to put us. And so it's been really fun, and just through that, I have just been so thankful. Just to kind of, at first I was doing a retail brand, which is called Designs, and I had that all throughout college. It was so much fun. I had a store at Florida State. It was just such a gift from the Lord. And I feel like he really has used that to kind of get me where I am today. And so Blakely and I, just like as she said, have launched Overflow Living, which has just been so incredible. And it's about living out of the overflow, Psalm 23. And so now we've just really been just praying about what the Lord wants to make that. And it's just been so awesome. And I'm also in postgrad, graduated about 2 years ago. And so it's just been a really sweet, I feel like, season of life of just, I think, even too, I know we have so many things to talk about, but I feel like it's been fun kind of transitioning from like retail and now taking this leap of faith into kind of like a ministry role. And we've been doing some social media managing on the side just to make
we
it
don't tell anyone that. Yeah. That's our side hustle.
That's our side hustle right now. So it's been really sweet, and I'm just thankful to get to do it with somebody, because I think that's been like the greatest gift ever about all of it has been getting to do it together. It's been so awesome.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. Like what you guys do, I've been seeing like the gatherings, and it looks so sweet, and like just seeing, because that's something that like we're going to talk about today is like community and like the importance of it, and like actually like why it's important, because I feel like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, like community's great, and then it's like community's great because like you get to be vulnerable with your community, and like it creating like that safe space for like women, like what you guys are doing, creating that safe space for women to like share about, just deep things, or just, heal their inner child wounds or traumas or all of that. So, not to like get so like deep into it, but like it's so sweet that like to see how God really is using you guys. And
thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I did want to talk about, how you started that in college, and what that looked like, and just like,
Oh my gosh, that's a wild story. I'll try to give the short, condensed one. So I went to Florida State University, and I was going in as an interdisciplinary medical sciences. So I was full on going to be a physician's assistant. Like, I still love medicine to this day. And my sophomore year, I basically just went through a really tough time in life where I was really, my freshman year, just really living for the world and just had no idea who I was. And if you go to college or if you go anywhere into life and you don't know your identity in the Lord, it is just so easy to want to try all the different identities and try and figure out, oh, maybe this, or maybe I'll find my identity in this guy or this or whatever. And so I really struggled my freshman and sophomore year, and it led me to one of just the darkest, most depressed, anxious times I've ever had in my entire life. And I remember I really started then, long story short, following the Lord, because I was like, I can't do this. Like, if one of my friends was like, oh, this is like how everyone feels, like this is like what everyone does. And I'm like, if this is everyone, like I do not want to be like everyone. And so I just really started to follow the Lord, and it wasn't perfect by any means. I made mistakes and just learned things along the way, but just was really passionate about making that like my priority of my life. And it's just been so cool what God has done since then. So I did that. And then my sophomore year, I was kind of, changing friend groups. I was kind of starting to, change the things that I did and all this different stuff. And I remember it was just like a hard time of like, okay, I'm trying to follow you, Lord, but like, this is kind of a little bit, difficult. And so I made this hat for myself, and it had a Keep Smiling patch on it. And I basically had drawn all these different designs, and then I was a college student, and I realized that the patch was going to be the cheapest. And so I went into my
saving the bucks.
Yeah, saving the bucks. And so I went into my sorority house room and started like ironing on patches to hats, and for myself only. And so I walk out of the room, and then everyone's like, "Where'd you get that? Where'd you get that?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, like I just made it. And they're like, "Can you make me one?" And so I started delivering hats like all to my friends all over campus. And then I had worked at a surf shop. So I guess I was kind of somewhat business minded and not even knowing it. And I worked at a surf shop, and I text my old boss there, who's incredible. And I was like, "Hey, I have been making all these hats, and like they're doing so well here. I think they do great at your surf shop." And he's like, "Okay, bring me 2 dozen or whatever." So I bring them, and I had never posted it on social media, and I only had like 1,000 followers. And I posted, "Hey, like we have these hats at Ono Surf Shop." And then everyone was just DMing me like, "Can you send this to Ohio? Or can you send me this to Iowa? Or can you send me this to Texas?" And I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I just started, why not? And so I just started saying yes. And from there, we just needed more space. So I ended up like just finding a warehouse. And then from there, I was like, I needed more space. And it was really just nothing that I could have ever imagined for my life. It was just one of those things where I just said yes to the Lord. And eventually I sat down and made a website, because I was like, I don't want anyone else to buy this hat and like not understand like what its meaning is and like where it came from in my life. So I think that's what people really resonated with at that time. And it was right before COVID, or right during COVID, really. And so I think a lot of people needed that message of keep on smiling. And so from there, we branched out into different designs, and just have been doing all sorts of things since then for a few years now. I guess it's like 3.5 years, and it's been really fun. So that's kind of how that started. And I am still doing it a little bit, but now it's kind of like more like I just kind of do it for fun. And I've really found I changed my major to social sciences so I could graduate, because I was done with school. I was like, I just need to get out of here. And I
same girl.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I changed my major, and I just really, I feel like it was so cool how God used hats, and maybe somebody listening to this right now, you're doing something really unexpected, and how he can use that to just show you. Because from there, people were like, "Oh, will you talk on my podcast about this? Oh, will you come speak at this event about it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay." And from there, God really just showed me this passion for just creating events for women and creating resources for women to come to know the Lord. Because as I started sharing my story, I realized how many women were also in the same place. And so it's just been so cool how he can use a hat, he can use wherever you're at right now.
Yeah. And that's so funny that you say that, because like that's actually how I like found your page.
That's awesome.
Anna.
Yes.
We met at VuCon, and like I think she like posted about it once, and I was like, "Oh, like that looks so cute, like the hat." And then like looking it up, like what it meant. And but yeah, that's so sweet. And then, so how did the Overflow Living, like how did you guys decide to start that?
Great Another question. Funny story.
Yeah.
So I spent the fall semester this past fall, living in Hawaii with the most amazing family. I actually met them on Instagram, like total crazy God thing. I love Instagram DMs. I think it's a great place to meet people. But anyway, so I met this amazing family on Instagram, and me and one of my best friends went and lived with them. But the mom she's a Christian author. She is kind of like a mom influencer type thing, gives a lot of resources on Instagram and whatnot, and has a whole blog and all that. But she has made a few courses on parenting. And as I was there, I was just kind of watching the process of that happening. And we got to have a lot of cool conversations. And she was like, you know what, Blakely, you should honestly start praying into this. Like, maybe this is a direction God could take you down. There's so many awesome things that you could create a course about for women your age. And it's just like a very tangible resource that I feel like isn't super populated amongst our generation. So that kind of sparked curiosity. And then this past summer, I got to help out at Life Retreat. And after Life Retreat, Maya and I went to New York, and we were watching Chance's baseball game, and we literally sat in Central Park on a bench. So magical. And just talked about all the things, and just, I think, really realized, like, wow, our hearts are so in line on so many things, especially, I mean, particularly with women's ministry, and just our heart to see women our age come to not only know the Lord, but really flourish in their faith. And so Maya and I got on the phone and we're like, we should do a course. That'd be so cool. Let's pray about it. And then really a month later, we get on the phone, and I feel like our hearts and vision for what the course would be were super similar, just kind of echoing off of that New York Central Park bench conversation of like, we want to see women flourish. And I think there's so many practicals that we just don't talk about in the church of like, okay, if I want to read my Bible, like, where the heck do I start? Or like, if I want to pray, like, what's kind of just like what you were saying earlier, like, what's the why behind prayer? Because I can't do it if I don't have a proper understanding of why this is important. So we started Flourishing was our first course, and then
it was we kind of started, our prayer was like, okay, God, we don't want to like get ahead of ourselves, we don't get ahead of you. Like, if you want it to be anything else, you can make it that, but if not, we're just going to end here, and that's what you've told us to do, and we'll do that. And then we were talking one day, we were in the car, and we were like, and I just feel like what's so cool about Flourishing is it's out of the overflow of our life. And then we both looked at each other and we go, that's it. Like, that's it. Like, and then we just kept praying about like, God, what do you want to do? And then we had, we ended up doing a course on Psalm 23, like breaking it down verse by verse. And then from there we started doing gatherings, and it was just one of those things where basically overflow, it encompasses all of these different studies and resources for women out of the overflow of our own life. And so, with the Lord. And so it's just been so sweet. And I guess that's where we're at right now. It's been open about a few months, and we've just been loving it and just learned a lot in the process. And
we've learned a lot,
and it's been so awesome.
That's so sweet.
I think also just something that has been huge in the process of learning and all the things is like, I think you see a lot of the ministries we see have been around for so long. And so the success we see is like really birthed from years and years of things that we don't see. And I feel like Maya and I have really been in like the midst of those birthing pains, so to say, of like, releasing something. Like, we had one gathering that we launched for Austin and like didn't really get signups, and we were like, this is really humbling, but like, Lord, we trust you, you know? So it's just been such a growing experience, and one that we've really gotten to be like, okay, God, do we really trust you? And amidst like this ministry not growing how we necessarily expected it to. So it's just been the most incredible, stretching, awesome, beautiful experience ever.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And like, just to see that like you guys are just doing it, because like I go to conferences all the time, and it's like, who, like, if it's not us, like preparing, like who's going to be the next generation that like leads, the generation after us, and like really being obedient to being like, oh God, like I'm doing this, but like, I'm not moving until you say move, and like, I mean, I was telling you guys, like, even like on the way here, like it was like one of those, like for me, it was like, I felt like God wanted me to do it. And then I moved here, and then like when you trust him like that much, when you have that kind of faith of like, what, God, like this is literally all in your hands, like you could take it all away tomorrow, and if I don't have you, like I'm nothing.
Yeah.
So that's so, I love that, and it's an honor and a privilege to be with you guys. Like,
oh,
seriously.
likewise.
Yes, likewise.
Likewise, girl.
You guys are so sweet. So let's talk about like the vulnerability aspect of like the community, like what you guys have seen when you guys like curate these spaces for girls and women to like come around, and like just like what you guys why it's important to you guys.
So good. I think what's been so cool, like you said, I've had the just honor to get to go to conferences and retreats, and every time that I would go speak somewhere, really where gatherings came from, is I would notice that girls would come afterwards and they'd be like, I'm really struggling with this or with this part of my life or my boyfriend or this. And they just want a moment to be like heard and seen. And like, I think there is obviously such an importance of conference retreats. Let's keep going, keep doing them 100%. But I think that there's also this space that we're kind of missing out on that I feel like our generation has a really big call to, if I'm honest, is like creating these spaces where, you know, there's 10 people in the room, 15 people in the room, and you can get advice from, you know, godly women who have maybe walked in your shoes, or maybe they have just advice of something, like they can show you biblical scripture and truth as to what you're going through. And so I think that is one of those things that we just wanted to create a space of where people could be vulnerable, where they could talk, and that usually isn't going to happen in a 100-person room, you know? It's like, and so I think that that's something that we've really learned is, you know, creating smaller spaces. And that's something that anyone can do. Like truly, like our hope, even with our gatherings, is that it's just like a kickstart for people. Like they just start, you know, and they're like, oh, wow, this is so fun. And then they go and they do it on their own, you know, it's just kind of like lighting that fire. Because, you know, like you said earlier, Jesus does want us, desire us to live in community. He walked this earth. We were just talking about this last night, and was with the 12 disciples. You know, he was with people all the time. And, you know, there was such a purpose to that. And he was Jesus. He was God. He could have not done that, but he did it to model to us. And so I think it's even just something so special that we've kind of gotten to do and just kind of light that fire and that flame. But I think vulnerability is so essential. And I know you believe that as well.
Yeah. And I think nowadays there's just so much online and virtual, and in the wake of COVID, obviously so many things had to go virtual, which there's been so much blessing. I'm not against that at all, but I think a lot of us are getting back to this desire and like quenching for in-person interaction. And so much of, you know, what we've started doing was online. I think we just got to the point where we were like, I feel like people, like Maia said, are just, we want face-to-face, in-person. That's what we're designed for, you know? So I think people don't feel necessarily the space and ability to be vulnerable unless they're in a setting like that. And we both have such hearts for creating those spaces, whether it's like, you know, with the flowers or the little, just all the details. It's definitely a huge part of each of our hearts. And so the gatherings have been so fun to get to use our unique giftings, but also like create a space for people to come and just feel like, okay, I'm in a smaller group setting and I can just open up and be myself. And hopefully, it creates a ripple effect of like, whoa, this is, you know, I'm created for community in this sense. And I want to model that in my day-to-day life and in my friendships. And I think also too, just like we often see community almost as like a advantage to being a Christian, but it really is just so much more. It's what we're created to live in. It's almost, it's a command. God, Jesus models that. Like Maia said, we're supposed to model after his life. And one of the biggest things he modeled was being in community, like in rich, deep, intimate community. And I think we just miss that. So that's such a huge heart of ours for anything we do with Overflow, is just creating spaces that are like rich and vulnerable and not superficial.
And like I feel like it's so important. Like, for example, like Jonathan Bakudo was at the porch last week, and he is being so vulnerable with like the congregation, like you know, when he's preaching, and like that allows everyone there to be like, oh wait, I can actually talk about this. Like we can actually have a conversation about this, because you know, like that's like what the enemy like desires. Like he wants us to like, you know, not share and like keep everything to ourselves. And no, you're literally the only one going through this. Like you've been a Christian for this long and you're still going through that, you know? And like, that's why I like, oh my gosh, I have such a heart for like those deep chats with your girls, and you're
It's
just
the best.
like, it really is.
Yeah.
And like, you just, I mean, even just like, this past weekend I was at church and I serve with students, and I was just getting to know a girl. I had seen her a couple times, like we chat sometimes, and she's like in the middle school age, and like she, you know, it's like that awkward stage where you don't know what your identity is in, and like all of that. And I have such a heart for students because that's the age where I just really got lost. And I'm just talking to her, and I'm telling her, I'm like, yeah, like I used to care. I carried this for so long, and I finally one day when I was 17, I gave it all to God. And I was like, do you feel like you're carrying anything? And she was like, she was like, well, during COVID, like I gave my grandparents COVID, and they like passed away. And she's like, I've never shared that with anyone, and like teared up, and like I just got to speak so much life into her, you know, and like it started with like me first, like opening up and being vulnerable with her, you know, and like it's just so special, like when you see what God can do with like when you create those spaces like for women.
Yeah, and it's, I think also too with social media, I mean, this is such a huge topic, but it's so easy. I mean, people could look at our lives and be like, wow, you know, they've got it all together. They like the picture perfect, curated Instagram feed, you know, all those things. And it's just not reality at all. And it's not something to back away from Instagram because of, but I think that in person, like you said, having those moments, like you really just can't foster those the same way on a social media feed as you can face to face in person. So I just think the need for that as Instagram and its presence increases, like the need for in-person moments and interactions is just so, it's like as one increases, the other is just so needed. So.
And it's so cool too, like when someone has the boldness to share vulnerably, like just how much it encourages somebody else to share vulnerably. And then it's just like whenever like there's actually like biblical truth as to like when you're bringing things into the light, like whenever you say things and you get it out, like it is to the light, and now like darkness has no hold, like, you know, like now you can speak truth into it. And it's so important. Like sometimes we see social media and we want to just keep it there, but like I think this is such an encouragement of like, hey, get into people around you, you know, get to those, like just find somebody, a church, a small group, you know, just can't express it enough just how much of a blessing it is and how just biblical it is as well.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It's the greatest. So there's definitely someone listening to this that is like, that's me. Like I feel so stuck in my sin. I feel too far gone to even come back to God, or like I want that and I don't know how to find that. Like what are some practical ways that you would recommend to like have that? Because I know that sometimes like church can, you know, a lot of people carry a lot of church hurt. And it's so one of those things that I feel like you just, I don't know. Like I just wanted to ask you.
Yeah, that's so good. I think first off, if that is something that you've experienced, maybe it's church hurt, or maybe it's just somebody in the church or in a ministry that's hurt you, and you're like, I don't know if I want to go to small groups. I was so hurt. I just want to say I'm sorry, because that is not God's intention. Like the church is full of imperfect people, and I don't want to use that as an excuse, and it's not an excuse, but that is not his intention and isn't designed for your community. And I am sorry, and I hope that you would just from this conversation feel encouraged to try again. I've personally been hurt, and I think that I know that is something that just definitely was one of those things that kind of put like a barrier up for me for a little bit. And I think in the Bible, it even talks, I wish I remembered exactly, it talks about bringing that to the source. It says if you have any like discrepancies or quarrels amongst your brothers and your sisters, like the best way to handle that is by bringing it to the source. So maybe if it is still a place that you live and you want to, you know, kind of go back in that small group, I think like one of the best things you could do is maybe even bringing that up to them and be like, hey, like when I was opening up about this and being vulnerable, you said this and it really like hurt me. Like I feel a lot of shame from it, and giving that opportunity to reconcile. I think we could be so quick to be like, put all the walls up and just run the other direction because that's human nature. We're trying to protect ourselves, and especially if you've gotten hurt before. And so I would say, you know, just really pray into that reconciliation, like conversation, and see where it goes from there. And, you know, after maybe say, hopefully it goes wonderfully and, you know, you can kind of start rebuilding. And if not, I would just really encourage you to, you know, there's so many incredible churches out there. There's so many incredible people out there. And like Blakely and I said, like, we've literally talked about Instagram so much in this, and like, because of, we believe in like DMing too. Like, I think how I've met so many of my like best friends.
Literally same.
It's actually crazy. I've seen them. I'm like, man, she's really living her life for the Lord. Like, I love this part of her. I love this, whatever I'm seeing on social media. It's like, it might not all be, you know, exactly how she is all the time, but it's like, I like that. And, you know, I've DM'd somebody and I've been like, hey, do you want to go out for coffee? Or, hey, do you want to go do this? And I think just being the inviter, I think is so important. I think so many times we're waiting to be invited. We're waiting for the invitation. And I truly believe that as Christians, as people who walk in the Lord, I think that we are called to be the inviters sometimes. And I think that maybe just sliding into the DMs, or, you know, I think maybe you see, I remember there was this girl who was so cute at Michael's, and I was so nervous to talk to her. I just moved to West Palm, and I was like, oh gosh, I'm like, I want to say hi. I think we'd be great friends. Like, I could tell by the art she's getting, and she's going to be a painter, and I love to paint. And I got so nervous and I didn't say anything. And I remember as soon as she left, I was like praying. I was like, God, would you please just bring her back into my life? Like, I would love to, like, and I never did, like, I never saw her again. But to me, I feel like that was a huge lesson in my heart of being like, she could have very well just moved there and needed it, or she could have had a bajillion friends. It doesn't matter. Like, if you see somebody and that thought is on your mind, you know, I really just think just leaping out in faith and just saying, hey, I would love to hang out. I think sometimes we really overcomplicate it, and odds are they are probably seeking relationship and community. We're one of the loneliest generations to ever have walked this earth, which is crazy because of all of the connection resources that we have. But my question is, are we using them? And are we using them in the right ways to connect with people and like foster relationships? So I hope that just encourages somebody who sees the girl in Michael's or needs to send the DM to the girl who you've been staring at for so long. And you're like, we'd be great friends. I wish she would just have a feeling to DM me. DM her. You got it. We believe in it. You know?
And just echoing off of that, just touching a bit on the whole church hurt thing, because I know we've both been through that in different seasons and ways and all the things. But I think just something so important to keep in mind with church hurt is just the idea that it can be very easy to make the church, to see the people of the church as God almost, to like make the church our God.
Idolize them.
And that's where a lot of wounds and hurt come in, because then that translates into how we view God, and God's like, no, I told you that my people were always going to be messy and sinful and broken. And you just can't look at the church like that. But on the flip side, so I wanted to say that first, but on the flip side, something I just feel like I'm learning so much recently and have just been so convicted of is I moved recently back to California, and I'm in kind of a different area. And although I have some amazing friends close by, I'm also just in the season of I'm craving community and people to, you know, walk with me in my day-to-day walk with Jesus and all the things. And at church this past Sunday, the pastor was talking about, you know, even if it's not this church, I cannot stress the importance enough of getting involved in a church, whether it's serving, whether it's small group, whether it's coming on Sunday, whatever it is, just putting yourself out there and choosing like, okay, I'm going to choose this church and I'm going to go all in, because that's the purpose of the church, is to be our community and our people to do everyday life with. And I think so many of us see church as a Sunday morning thing and almost just like a place to go instead of a place to belong. And I think that I have felt so convicted of seeing church like that for so long, and just my own self being like, wow, I want community. Okay, well, you know, I don't really know where in California to find the community I'm looking for. So why don't I go to the church? It's just that is the intent and design of the church that I think we miss because we're too afraid to just commit and go all in. So that's a pledge to someone listening, but also to myself, because you know, that's what I'm walking through and learning right now. So we're all in this together.
No, we are. And like, it's one of those things. That's why community is like seriously so important. Cause like when you have someone to just be able to be like, hey, like, you know, like having those hard conversations is so hard, but they're so needed.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean, I just started serving at my church, I think like a month ago, and I had to call one of the leaders and I was like, hey, like, I didn't like that, you know, you went behind my back and, you know, did this. And like, and it was something that I feel like my past self would have been like, oh, I can just go find another church, or I can, you know, like turn away. But instead I was like, you know what, like, let's just have a conversation. And that is honestly like having those hard conversations, doing the hard things, like you're going to see so much growth and so much fruit also, because God's going to be like, you're being obedient, you know, like God wants us to be in community, in church, loving on others, serving others. I mean, that's what Jesus's like mission was, like, you know, like he didn't come to be served. He came to serve others and like demonstrate that to us as like, you know, we're here to serve people and love on people. And like, I feel like, again, like the enemy wants to isolate us so badly. And like when those things happen and
totally. I just, one last thing with that. This past year was really struggling. I had a lot of hurt with a church throughout college, and the pastor was actually speaking on, he was a new pastor, and one of his messages that he constantly preached was like, so many of us have experienced so much hurt from the church, we just won't talk about it. And so it was a crazy thing. I was sitting at a coffee shop praying about it, and I was like, Lord, I don't want to ask him to talk because maybe that's weird, I don't know, but just make it clear. And he walks up I'm not even joking, in that moment. And I was like, okay, well, let's chat. And so he sat me down and he just opened up so much about the own hurt he's felt and experienced. And that just brought so much healing even to those wounds that I had too. So I think it's just something that we, like you said, the enemy isolates us in that and makes us feel like, okay, I'm not worthy to go to that church or be a part of a community like that, or like those people suck, you know, whatever it is. But realizing that it's sinful people that make up the church. And I'm sure I've hurt someone in the church, you know? So, there's just so much healing that can be there. And to press in, like you said.
Also just like having grace on yourself.
Oh my
like
gosh.
we are like we're our hardest critics,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh
and
my
like
gosh.
we are just so hard on ourselves sometimes. And like we are like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. And like we self-sabotage and all these different things. And like, if you're listening to this, I just want to say, just have grace on yourself. Like, we're all figuring this out. Like, no one actually knows what they're doing. You know, like, we're all just figuring it out. And
one of my favorite things to say, like, anytime we have, like, because we put on retreats and different gatherings and different stuff, and one of my favorite things to say is always err on the side of grace. Like,
I got that from
with
you.
Like somebody who maybe like they said something, because a lot of times, like, if no one tells you you're doing something, you might not even realize that it's hurt them. Like, truly, there's been so many times in our lives and our relationships where, like, if we're not a people who starts to like kind of talk about it and share the truth about it, how are we supposed to ever know? Like, how is that church ever supposed to know? Like, you know, and how is that ministry ever going to know? I just think it's something that's so important, and there's a graceful way to do it, and also erring on the side of grace in your conversation, and, you know, not pointing fingers and becoming super abrasive, but like just erring on the side of grace. Like, hey, I know you probably didn't mean to. I know it's not your heart, but this is how it made me feel. And I think that's just, it'll save you just a lot of your own heartache and a lot of your own, I just feel like frustration as well. So
and I feel like that you can apply that to all areas of your life,
area,
like friendships,
yourself.
Oh my gosh,
relationships. You know, like there's times where you don't even know that you hurt someone, and like then you're talking about it like 6 months ago, like 6 months after, and you're like, wait, what? Like, where is this coming from? You know, so and
don't you wish that you, like, someone would give you that grace? You know, like,
my
that's the
gosh.
point. It, like, love one another as I have loved you. Like, Jesus' greatest commandment. Like, he's trying to show us, you know, like, if you're going to love one another, it's like, I would probably want somebody to, like, show me grace as well, you know? And that's what Jesus has done for us. So it's something that we're so quick to forget and only want for ourselves, but also not give to others. So
no, that's so good. Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming on. It's been so fun and such a sweet message. And just, I don't know, just even, I don't know, preaching to myself too. Cause like, you know, these are things that we're all, you know, going through and like walk through, and, you just moved to a new city and like navigating that. And so,
and I need to find a church. So that's like, we were just talking about that this morning. So I'm like, okay, God, I see you.
This is all what we're in the midst of.
Yeah. We're all walking through it. It's not like, we're all just over this. No, it's like,
no.
But yeah, thank you guys so much. And where can everyone find you on Instagram if they want to follow you? And
so kind. You go ahead, Blake.
My Instagram handle, embarrassingly, is shakeandblake_ly.
I love it.
7th grade. Pick that out. Still haven't decided if I should, change it. I'm like, when I have kids, should I change this?
Nope, you're keeping it. I love it. It's to you. And then you can find me on Instagram at Maia Mae Huff. Unfortunately, I don't have anything fun like that. My Snapchat username is dreamer000, but I don't know if anyone's going to go Snapchat. 000. And then our overflow.living is our just kind of ministry page and has all the gatherings or information. Our life retreat, which is coming up in June. Oh my gosh. Yes. So that'll be super fun.
June 14th.
Yes.
Oh, it's so fun. All right, guys. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And
thank you.
Thank you. It's been so fun.
Love it.